Let's hit 10,000 subscribers and I will give away $100 or a creepy doll to one lucky subscriber each week. Now let's begin our story. In the heart of a quiet suburban town, Sarah, a dedicated dispatcher, settled into her dimly lit office. The hum of computer screens and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights filled the room. As the clock approached midnight, Sarah's eyelids grew heavy, and she sipped her lukewarm coffee, determined to stay awake. Just when she thought the night would be uneventful, a chilling call came in. Sarah answered the call with her usual calm demeanor, but the voice on the other end sent shivers down her spine. It was a low, raspy whisper, barely audible, like a ghost's lament. "Help me," it pleaded. "They're coming." Sarah's heart raced as she strained to make out more details. The caller's words were cryptic, filled with fear and desperation. The caller mentioned an address that didn't exist on any map in town. Sarah pulled up her resources, but there was no record of such a place. Panic crept into her voice as she desperately tried to pinpoint the caller's location. The whispering voice grew more frantic, insisting that Sarah must find them before it was too late. With a determination bordering on obsession, Sarah embarked on a relentless quest to uncover the truth behind the call. She enlisted the help of her colleagues, tracing the call's origin and cross-referencing it with missing person reports. As the pieces of the puzzle slowly fell into place, a horrifying picture emerged. The address mentioned in the call led Sarah and her team to an abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town. Once a place of unimaginable suffering, it had been closed for years. The decrepit building seemed to loom menacingly in the moonlight. Sarah's heart pounded as she and the police officers cautiously entered the asylum's shadowy corridors. Whispers in the dark. Inside the asylum, the air grew thick with a suffocating dread. The flickering light of flashlights revealed ancient, rusted restraints and decaying beds. As they ventured deeper, they heard whispers, unearthly voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls. The asylum was alive with an eerie, otherworldly presence. Unholy encounters. The search for the caller led to a room that contained cryptic symbols and eerie drawings etched on the walls. The whispers grew louder and more sinister. The team's flashlights flickered and died one by one, leaving them in total darkness. In that suffocating void, they felt unseen hands closing around their throats. Inside the asylum, the air was laden with a stifling dread that suffocated the search party with its putrid weight. The flickering amber beams cast by the officers' flashlights cut through the impenetrable darkness, illuminating the sinister remains of the institution's gruesome past. Ancient rusted medical beds with worn leather straps stood as relics from a barbaric era of misguided medicine, while thick layers of dust covering decaying furniture hinted at the asylum's decades of abandonment. As the team ventured deeper into the dilapidated wards, the atmosphere grew more ominous. They began to hear whispers and murmurs, soft as a haunting breeze, as if the asylum itself was stirring to life. The unearthly voices seemed to emanate from within the very walls, echoing ever so faintly through the crumbling corridors. It was clear this place had been imprinted by the souls of those who had suffered unthinkable torment while confined here. An eerie, otherworldly presence pervaded the asylum, like a shadowy phantom that had permeated every stone and every sinew. Driven by the cryptic plea for help from the mysterious caller, Sarah continued to lead the search, her heartbeat competing with the sound of creaking floorboards under each tentative step. The further they explored the abandoned wings, the louder the spectral whispers around them became, as if defying the team's encroachment. Turning a corner, they discovered a room scarred with unsettling occult symbols and glyphs etched deeply into the walls. Some appeared to be archaic summoning rituals, while others depicted demonic entities and foul monsters. The entire chamber seemed to hum with some peculiar malevolent energy. Then, suddenly, the whispers amplified into a cacophony of hushed, chaotic voices, sinister and otherworldly. The officers' flashlights started to flicker, threatening to plunge the room into absolute darkness. As the last amber beams faded, void-like darkness enveloped the search team, who huddled together in blind disorientation. A heavy, oppressive dread weighed upon their throats, as if ghostly hands were clawing at their neck in warning. Sarah shook off the spectral grasp and rallied her disconcerted colleagues. Fumbling in the impenetrable blackness, her hands alighted on a weathered, leather-bound journal concealed in a decrepit bedside cabinet. Fighting her trembling nerves, she began to read the book's contents using the illumination from flickering candlelight. The journal was a doctor's diary from decades past, belonging to the asylum's last medical superintendent. As Sarah turned the pages, an unsettling portrait emerged of a once-respected man whose obsession with the mysteries of life and death had steadily corrupted his mind. The diary described his experimental treatments performed on patients without consent, from dissecting living subjects to studying the effects of electroshock performed during arcane rituals underneath the asylum under the cover of night. Ultimately, the doctor became convinced he could cheat death through his machinations and achieve immortality. However, it transpired that his depraved experiments had unleashed something wicked into the walls of the asylum, an ancient malevolent force that granted dark knowledge and corrupted mortal minds. The spirits of his tortured victims now aimlessly haunted the wards, unable to move on from the horrors inflicted upon them. Sarah felt her head swimming as the awful reality set in. This was no ordinary abandoned building, but a place steeped in unspeakable suffering, where the veil between worlds had been ripped apart. A ripple of panic spread among the search team, who were now desperate to flee the nightmare of otherworldly horrors. But escape would not come easy. As the officers scrambled down the gloomy corridors, guided only by flashlight beams restored as mysteriously as they had vanished, it became clear they were not alone. Unsettling whispers and shrieking howls permeated the stale air once more, only now they seemed somehow closer, more substantial. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream rang out from the back of the group. Spinning around, Sarah's blood turned to ice as she saw several shadowy, spectral figures reaching out towards them. Their distorted, anguished faces were difficult to discern, shifting in form from caught death victims to lobotomized adolescents to deformed monstrosities. These were the tormented souls of the asylum's victims, bound eternally to the place of their suffering by the doctor's malevolent experiments. Sarah realized to her horror that the spirits were goading them back towards the ritual chamber. They sought vengeance against all living souls that trespassed here. Panic threatened to overwhelm Sarah's mind as the team fled down endless corridors, pursued by the vengeful spirits who seemed to permeate the very walls of this place. Their unearthly shrieks and desperate pleas created a deafening cacophony that drowned out all rational thought. Blind terror gripped them all. Even the armed officers were reduced to whimpering wrecks and muttering fragments of prayers. It felt as though the asylum's dark history was bleeding out into the present, turning the world upside down and threatening to plunge them all into madness. After what seemed like hours of stumbling through the haunted maze, a glimmer of hope emerged. Sarah spotted the entrance up ahead, the dilapidated front doors illuminated by soft moonlight. With lungs fit to burst, they made a final dash and burst out into the cool night air. Collapsing in exhaustion on the overgrown lawn, Sarah glanced back to see an impenetrable gloom clogging the asylum's doorway. Only muffled wails could be heard from within its cursed walls. They had made it out with their lives, but not their sanity intact. In the days that followed, Sarah discovered that some of the officers from that night had handed in their badges, too traumatized to ever return to duty. For Sarah herself, life could never be the same again. The chilling call had drawn back the veil on a legacy of suffering that transcended the boundaries of life and death. In the years that passed, she was unable to shake the memory of that malevolent presence in the old asylum, nor the twisted visions that still haunted her dreams. She often wondered if those tormented souls were still bound to those walls, waiting for the day when another unsuspecting soul might pass over the threshold and answer their whispered cries for help. All she could do was hope that the secrets of the dead would remain buried beneath the dust, so that no one else would fall prey to the sinister malevolence within. In the years that followed, Sarah could never shake the feeling that the whispers of that night still lingered, waiting for another unsuspecting soul to answer the call. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for me and like this video. Keep it creepy and see you next time.